So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Kushina. So let's start the series. Naruto. He was startled to see that the pouch was gone when he sprang awake and reached for a weapon. And the rest of his garments. Naruto looked about the room, taking in every detail of his surroundings as he freaked out a little. He had never seen the room before. The walls had a crystal black finish. He assumed they shone a little because there were no visible light sources. The only furniture other from the bed was a sizable stand of some sort, which held a set of clothes. His attire. However, these were immaculate, while his clothing had been burned, and pocked with holes from weapons. Beside them hung his holsters. I'm obviously not a prisoner, he thought, squinting his eyes. 9 beasts? He was met with resounding silence. After a brief period of meditation, he entered his mindscape. However, there was a significant difference when he reached the seal, either 9 beasts nor a cage, as there had been in the early years of his childhood, were there in the room. Yhhh! Naruto screamed, startled out of his reverie. Forget about not being incarcerated. Now I need to find him. I'm going to die from Tsunade. He hurried for the lone door after throwing on his pants and holster, seeing that his headband was still as scratched up as before. Strangely, he felt light. It wasn't a space-time spirit art, because gravity was still working, but it required oddly little energy to travel at his usual rate. He'd just been out of fight, so he anticipated to be exhausted, but not that he could feel the drain anyhow. There was no handle visible on the door. Strangely reluctant to touch the black crystal frame, he thought about it for a moment before doing so. He was shocked to see that the smallest touch caused it to open. And when he said, "Open," he meant completely vanished. Which, had he used a little touch, would have been okay, but instead he threw his shoulder against it. Naruto cursed and tumbled down a long set of steps. Naruto smiled and wondered whether Sakura could see me, now. A sudden, emotional, rather than physical, pain tore through him. One palm twisted at his heart as he gasped. What was that? He opened his eyes and sat up when nothing more occurred. He wasn't as sore as he had anticipated. But his surroundings soon diverted his attention from this reality. He stood staring at the world he was in, his eyes wide. Complete darkness. The only descriptor was that. He emerged from a tower-like structure that seemed to go on forever into the sky. The inky darkness of the sky was contained by a scarlet dome that stretched farther than he could see. There was more of the eerie, black crystal on the ground. He was immediately on full war alert. No more awkward, kind Naruto. It's time for Naruto, the future headmaster. Evidently, there had been a serious incident during the battle with Pain. The world appeared to narrow, and he sank to his knees with a moan. I wouldn't do that if I were you, a composed voice behind him remarked. With a weapon shimmering into his hand, Naruto turned. A man was kneeling in the middle of a dirt box. Naruto blinked. He was gardening, right? Naruto said. Who are you? As his weapon sank a little. Where am I? The two are not mutually exclusive. The man grimaced as he stood. I can never get anything to grow here. Just answer me, Databeo! Naruto exclaimed in frustration. What's with all this weird crystal and the sky and the tower, and did you undress me? You came without clothes, actually, he said, scratching the dirt off his hands. You can call me Advocate. Also, welcome to the trash heap. Naruto. When Naruto returned to the tower, he was shocked to discover that his chamber had become a very familiar classroom. He could see the man clearly in the better illumination of his former academy. Or he ought to have, anyway. It's odd that he always forgets details he's trying to perfect, like the color of his hair or the tone of his skin. There was essentially a huge blank spot where he saw a person when he glanced at him. Who are you? He inquired once more. As if he hadn't already attempted to unleash it, he asked. Is this Gen spirit art? Not an illusion, if that's what you mean, he answered coolly. And I told you call me advocate. Where is this? Interstitial space. It was quite impressive of you to come all the way here without some sort of reality-bending manifestation. I don't understand what you mean, Nuda murmured, experiencing again another sharp pain. Don't think about it too hard. I've sealed off a portion of your memories for protection. Too much at once will overwhelm you. Suffice to say, you came here of your own free will and as a last resort. Nuda repeated. I still don't understand. But this time his tone was less bewildered and heartbroken than usual. It's fine. Advocate smiled. Mr. Holier than thou Rikudo Senin came from your world, and even he couldn't really understand without me explaining it all. Perhaps some pictures would go well with the lecture. He gave the whiteboard a tap. Suddenly a diagram showed up, an oval with rings on it. A broad red ring, a thin green ring, a thinner white ring, and an intermediate-sized blue ring were all placed around the golden dot in the center. You came from here. He tapped the red ring. Any guesses as to where we are now? Nuda paused to reflect. Either the gold dot or the green ring? He tapped the black line between the gold and red and said, Not a bad guess, but no. We're here. And here. The green and red one. The one between the green and white is. And here. He tapped the outdoor space and said, And the other lines, of course. We are also here. There are several rings, but only one interstitial space. This is, however, the best representation I can show you. Is there a point to this? Point? The advocate thought. Well, I was just answering your question, but we can move on, I suppose. What else did you want to know? How do I get back? He was asking, raising his voice. They're all fighting without dash. Pain. Advocate was kneeling by him in an instant. The ache subsided. I told you, that's a bad idea. Stop trying to remember. Here, seeming is being. Why? He asked, sounding if he had been shouting, his throat raw and pained. Why does it hurt so much? The advocate paused to give Nuda time to digest, saying, Because you're not here in your body. Focus on my words. Don't bother verifying them, or it's going to hurt more. Nerd, you're dead. Dead? No way. I was so young. I haven't even become headmaster yet, he cried, covering his ears with his hands. Advocate smiled. Yeah, too young to die, are you sure I'm dead, etc., etc. Listen, the reason you're here is something hinky went on with your death. Something powerful ripped a hole in your world and sent you here. Something immortal, most likely, and something that belonged to the world in a key fashion. Do you know what it was? Nuda didn't pause to reflect. 9 Beast. Or maybe, the Shinigami. But probably 9 Beast. I haven't even met the Shinigami since the third died. I wonder if Dash. To halt the speech, the advocate raised a hand. The point is, this 9 Beast used himself like a lifeline in an attempt to pull your soul back. However, he wasn't quite powerful enough, and he only managed to put you here. From here on, you're going to need my help. To return from the dead? Like Edo Tensei? Isn't that? Nuda thought about it. Wrong? Time doesn't flow here like it does elsewhere. In your world, you may have just died. It'll hardly be resurrecting, more like restarting a heart. Still, why wouldn't I just come back? Someone must have sealed 9 Beasts' access to your body. Or perhaps, the world changed too much for your soul to recognize in the time between his use of the technique and your return. The advocate pondered. All right, I'm going to do you a favor. I'll return you to your world. Really? Nirda said, his eyes gleaming. That's so well, I wasn't expecting you to be such a nice guy. There's a catch, Nirda remarked. I knew it, Databayo, with a sad expression. You're going to ask me for my soul, or my firstborn, aren't you? Nope, I just want you to carry a piece of me with you. You're still suspicious. Deal with it. It's do as I ask, or you won't be able to return. Nirda let out a sigh. Fine, I'll do it. Advocate smiled once more. It was uncanny fear. Meet me outside. He was gone after that. Nirda surveyed the classroom. It looked just like what he recalled, but how had Advocate known? He took an eraser in his hand. He laughed as he recalled dropping it on the skull of the sixth skull master. What became of, no. That is not the way he should think. The seal was painful. The garden was gone when he stepped outdoors. It was replaced by a sky-piercing, long stairway. Advocate had a slight smirk on his face as he stood there with his arms up. He had his eyes shut. Nirda shrugged it aside after blinking and wondering how he knew what his face was doing while he couldn't see what he looked like. Advocate stated, It's ready, without making any movements. The ball at the bottom, take it with you. I'll let you call on me 3 times. Call on me 4 times, and the deal's off. I'll kill you, got it? Nirda scowled and shot back. Why would I call such a jerk anyways? The words, You never know, Advocate stated vaguely. Just don't drop the ball. Don't look down. And whatever you do, don't go back. I'm not sure how many times I can do this. 9 Beast's lifeline is shaky as it is. I'm not absolutely sure of the effects an unstable tether will have, but it's a chance you're willing to take, I'm sure. Nirda was really annoyed by the way he said that. Listen, you dash. Advocate shivered and muttered. No time. Go! Hurry! Nirda gritted his teeth, grasped the ball, which made him think of Advocate, who was dark and difficult to see, and went up the first flight of stairs. He was instantly in pain. I'm sorry I couldn't go with you till the end, Ganada replied, her eyes brimming with love and grief. I know you can do it. Nirda let out a gasp. The weight of the ball appeared to increase. What was that? He walked a step further. Shikamaru was laying on the ground with a hole the size of Nirda's fist in his stomach. Wasn't that great a plan after all? He said. Even as he exclaimed, I can heal you, just stay still, he was aware that 9 Beasts lacked sufficient core energy. According to Shikamaru, I could see through that lie a mile away. With a smile, his shoulder was grabbed by one bloodied hand. You bear my determination now. Think like a Nara. Nirda let out a scream. It was painful. He felt burdened by the ball. Don't make a mistake. Avoid looking down. Don't turn around. He walked a step further. As he recalled them, wounds opened wide. Gara. Headmaster number 6. Tsunade. Niji. Lee Rock. Guy, his sensei. Ino. Chuji. Dead. Due of his failure. The 10 Tails let out a yell. He walked a step further. His spirit grew heavier. Obito said, You're weak, you have neither the vision, nor the power to change what must be changed. Your friends died for your lack of power. But don't worry, they'll be resurrected in time. My Moon's Eye plan will continue. You have changed nothing, only made it a little harder to proceed. 9 Beast. Don't give in, Nirda. I've stopped the bleeding, but you can't give in. If he wins, it's all over. The tone of Nirda's howl was uncannily similar to the roar of the 9 Fox. Anger, misery, and hate. He walked a step further. It was gloomy. Silently, water trickled. The setting was recognizable, the jail of the Nine Fox, his mindscape. Nine beasts, Gerda said. I'm sorry. I failed. Nine beasts questioned. What happened to that monolithic determination I remember? You aren't just giving up, are you? Gerda laughed. I can be as determined as I want. It was all over once the Ten-Tail was revived, even imperfectly. Once they got Killer Bee, the outcome was decided. To think I'd hear you talking about decided outcomes, the Nine Fox thought. I'm going to free you. At least you can escape before I die. You'll be free at last. Not free enough. His Sharingan hypnosis is powerful. I have no doubt I'll be overwritten by his impulses like last time. The Nine Beasts' eyes widened. There might be a way. Nerda responded. Name it. With a sudden glimmer of optimism. At this point in time, you are dead. What remains is merely that a remnant. I'm an immortal. It's possible for us immortals to resurrect. The seal it ties me to you. As a remnant of the Shinigami, it is outside of time. I can use the seal to push your soul out, resurrect, then pull you back in. Sounds complicated. What if it goes wrong? You could be stranded in Gehenna, to suffer for eternity. Oh, well, as long as it isn't anything major, Gerda remarked, giving the fox a weary smile. Do it. Unseal me. Gerda inhaled and exhaled. He had nearly reached the summit. He had assumed there were more stairs than that, so it was odd. He desired to gaze down. The ball was heavier than anything he had ever carried. He could no longer move easily. His sense of weight was much heavier than usual. Don't make a mistake. Avoid looking down. Don't go back. The landing was the final stair. He set foot on it. The light beckoned from above. I'll finish up after you're done. Wondering how he could move with his weight, he leaped. Perhaps it was more than just possible. He might have done it out of necessity. Promote. The space beyond was enormous and inky, and the sky tore. Nerda's father felt sick when he looked into it. With his hands creating the first suicidal seals, he asked in horror, What is this? Nine Foxes also looked up, perplexed. In the middle, something white glinted. Stairs? With the power of 1,000 wrecking balls, they crashed into the Nine Tails. Pinned and furious, it flattened beneath them. It thrashed, but it couldn't get to its objective or move them. A man carrying a brilliant blue ball descended the stairs. Even though Nerda's father couldn't see his face, he was beaming from ear to ear. Who are you? Inquired Nerda's father. He said to him, You may call me the advocate of destruction. In a tone so decisive that Nerda's father, the IWA war hero, recoiled. This planet is full with life, Advocate thought, enthralled. I wish I had some of that with me. The portals are closing, sadly. The man with the yellow hair asked, What do you want? Advocate said, To stop the architect of higher thought, with a smile. But you wouldn't know him. Power came together and took the shape of an imaginary spear with a flick of his wrist, piercing through the guy and his wife, pinning them to the floor. From the sphere came an unsettling rumble. Oh, pipe down, scowled Advocate at it. They'll be fine. It's time to do something about you, though. He drew closer to the youngster, looking into its crying, blue-eyed depths. He threw the sphere at the Nine Fox, who snapped at it and consumed it like the avaricious savage it was. This is the point of creation, huh? Well, who am I to decide? Being a being of pure life energy, it would have sunk in any case, so it wouldn't have mattered if he hadn't. So you must be Nine Beast, Advocate remarked, gazing into its crimson eyes. It's a pleasure. I really owe you one. I wasn't looking forward to this world joining the Blue Belt. The architect's stuck up as it is. However, I did promise to help that boy, so I'm afraid I'm going to seal you now. Advocate doubted that the Nine Fox even realized what was happening as it thrashed, its eyes agitated. Its thoughts were composed of a subtle interweaving of power, combining purpose with general malice. He touched its head with one hand. The force that gave him life wavered. Advocate scowled, focused. The world turned into energy, music, and light. He entered the Nine Fox after that. This was a formidable beast. He shrugged, wondering idly how the other seal had functioned. If he wanted to make a change, he would make it his way. Furthermore, it hadn't been that wonderful anyhow because it had been overloaded and destroyed when Nine Beast completed his makeshift entrance to Gehenna. He went outside and approached the mother. Pain-glazed, her eyes followed him, somehow thwarting his delusion. It was the same with the other. The boy's parents were too powerful for their own good. They may have spared themselves some pain if they had passed out. He grabbed the woman by the neck after reaching down. "This is going to hurt," he remarked coolly. His cells then invaded and started to destroy, replace, and repair. As she started to scream, he released her, highlighting the 4 marks on her neck. She passed into unconsciousness mercifully. The blonde was starting to object to his method. The advocate had underestimated his strength. He had to move quickly. The Nine Fox was also engaged in combat. The stairs rose, then descended once more. It snarled. Impressed, Advocate thought, tremendously powerful. He would have to do something else because sealing wasn't his specialty. Sensing Naruto's presence, he seized the essence of the Nine Fox and pulled. The whole thing poured into his hand, screaming, and as he absorbed it, the body of the Nine Beast gradually faded. Placing them within the child's body would not be sufficient. Advocate was already starting to wane because he was cut off from his source of power and didn't belong here. He was already being rejected by the world. In order to avoid the hole into his domain closing, he required a host immediately. A thought flashed into mind. He smiled and added himself to the sphere with a whirl of force. It gradually sank into the youngster, creating an odd, disorganized-looking seal between 4 distinct components. The tears instantly healed, and the stares vanished. Father Naruto. The spear vanished. Suddenly able to move, Naruto's father struggled to decide whether to check on his unconscious wife or rush to his child's side. Naruto decided to check on his wife since he was crying as passionately as ever. She was breathing more easily, which surprised him. He was unpleasantly reminded of a sealing method by the black lines that had etched themselves into her skin. As he watched, they gradually faded. Staring at his kid and the visible seal, Naruto's father queried the night air. "Who know, what was that?" The faint echo of a laugh followed the disappearance of the man-shaped hole in the air. "Mindscape, Naruto." "Kid, that's a favor one. I'm not a child. And I didn't ask you to keep them safe." The advocate laughed and said, "You may not recall it, but you were yelling, 'Save them,' as soon as you spotted them. Preserve them." So pitifully, I had to take action. 9 animals snarled. "Who are you? Where am I?" "It's really crowded in here," Naruto grumbled. "And ought he not to be in a cage?" "Probably not," the advocate thought. "Well, he's not exactly tame. Do not be concerned. You can be the warden, and I'll be the prison's bars. Naruto, good luck. You will need it to stop the architect." Naruto was exiled into the darkness of a baby's sleep before he could ask. "Father Naruto." Sarutobi gave him a hug as soon as he saw him, which was so unexpected that Naruto's father stopped for a moment, not knowing how to respond. By the time he was able to move again, the moment had passed. "The 9 foxes?" the old headmaster inquired. Sealed. How? I'm not sure. Later on, we'll discuss it. Right now, we should concentrate on rebuilding, mending, and securing our area. We were observing, but the barrier went dark, Sarutobi said, nodding in agreement with his priorities. We were unable to notice anything. I said later. The headmaster is needed in the village. There are people beneath the debris, and we need to bring order back. We must save them if there is still one alive. Also, Hiruzen, said Nuda father hesitantly. Forward, Jiraiya. After nodding and pointing to one of the two ninjas who had followed him, Sarutobi vanished silently, most likely heading back to Hide Ninja Village. Nuda's father quickly sealed his lips and vanished along with his wife and kid. Now that they were gone, Sarutobi looked at the ground. The grass inside the barrier was turning yellow at a frightening rate, which had not been noticeable when they had first entered the clearing. He bent down and picked one, and it was dying quickly, a remnant of the 9 Fox's core energy. He scowled, thought about it, then shrugged. One more mystery for later. Without Nuda father's Haration, it would take him a good 20 minutes to return to the village. Headmaster's office, Nuda father. I've never seen anything like it, Jiraiya thought. Since it's so chaotic, even though it looks like a seal. I'm concerned because I don't comprehend the fundamental idea behind it. Every Uzumaki seal uses the same basic pattern to disperse energy. This one is based on essentially distinct mental processes. Is it dangerous? Refusing to express his actual worries, Nuda's father inquired. As his sensei would have predicted, Jiraiya heard them nevertheless. The host and tailed beast should interfere as little as possible. The seal is quite powerful, even if I've never heard of it. This mysterious sealing master you chance to run into in the jungle is even more concerning. Which village is he from? What drives him? The number of questions is excessive. He was there on purpose, and he didn't just happen to meet me. Nuda's father shook his head. It implies that he was aware of what would occur. I'm not sure how or why, but I always feel thankful. He looked down at his child, the smile tugging at his eyes. Despite his suspicions, Jiraiya nodded, for miracles and coincidences turn into tricks and plans for a shinobi, and he knew of no clan that could have done this, nor any potential reasons outside of Hide Ninja Hamlet for saving the dreaded Yellow Flash. Unanswered queries annoyed him. The door suddenly flew open, and Nuda father quickly produced a weapon, but it was merely a Hide Ninja Village chunin. Headmaster Sama! Yes, with his firearm in hand, albeit not always ready, Nuda's father asked the woman quietly. She gulped at the man's overwhelming want to kill. The hospital supervisor requests your presence, she replied. She wants to talk about Nuda Mom-san. Could you watch Nuda for me, Jiraiya? The father of Nuda asked him. With a broad posture, Jiraiya declared. No cloaked enemy shall get entry, because I am Jiraiya, sage of toads, and I hello. Avoid leaving in the midst. From his cot, Nuda laughed. The hospital room of the Nuda mother and father. What is the issue with her? With a tone that could only be described as hospital voice, Nuda's father inquired. We don't know. We're a little out of our element, to be honest. She shouldn't have made it through the extraction at all. I can't even tell my assistants what to look for because her status as a host is considered top secret. Lazy. All of them. Nuda's father gave a doctor's administrator his best death glare, which reportedly made the Uchiha family run for their lives. Then take a look at yourself. Save her, no matter what you have to do. He cleared his mouth and said, Why yes, Headmaster Sama. Is there any way we could contact Tsunade? There's more than a possibility. With a gloomy expression, Nuda father muttered, I'm going to drag that child of a woman back myself if she doesn't return immediately. Following the man's departure, Naruto's father bent his head to Naruto's mom's side. Mom, Naruto. Naruto shot into the air, his eyes wide with amazement, his arms reaching for support where none existed, and he dropped, slamming with startling speed to the ground and landing in his father's arms. Upsy daisy, it was oddly frightening for Naruto, who had moved much faster in his life and in much worse circumstances, but he couldn't help but laugh, his annoying baby laugh, from his irritating high-pitched voice. The man gushed, blowing him into the air once more. His subordinates, by now accustomed to what they called his baby mania, simply averted their eyes with a sigh. You really meant it when you stated side effects, so I inwardly cursed. Damn you, advocate! A laugh came back. It was a strangely humbling feeling to not be able to move your body the way you wanted, and the diapers, the awful diapers. Now that Naruto was 3 months old, he was starting to regain some control. He could wave his arms around a little and close his hands, even though he could hardly move his fingers. When Naruto's father saw that he was shaking, he stopped throwing him and smiled, saying, Maybe you're a little young for that yet. How huge you've grown is insane. Sometimes I forget you're only a few months old. Was he suggesting that Naruto was short? Naruto glared at him. Advocate smugly remarked, You're short, Naruto. Nine Beasts said, and foul-mouthed. Naruto mentally yelled, Shut up, Databao! The seal was considerably weaker this time, and he felt as though Nine Beasts could read his mind while he wasn't paying attention. Advocate complained moodily, Well, I'm sorry for not being good enough. See how that works out for you next time. The next time will never come. When Naruto's father gazed at his child with interest, Naruto snapped out of it and returned the gaze. His father said, I swear, you have the strangest eyes. And Naruto turned his head, bored. Jiraiya said, I do believe you've just been shunned, as he entered the Namake's home. His clothes were filthy from the road, and he appeared exhausted. Naruto was annoyed to see tears streaming down his plump baby face. He hadn't seen Jiraiya in a long time. It was annoying when you couldn't focus your eyes well enough to read a calendar. Naruto's father grinned at his child and added, I promise, he's going to be a brat when he grows up. He already takes after Naruto's mom. He sometimes cries if I turn my head away for more than a second, I promise. Speaking of Naruto's mom, Jiraiya smiled and continued, I have news. Have you located her? With a swift motion, Naruto's father inquired. She was deeply in debt at a gambling den. I almost completely lost my wallet trying to get her out. For this, Naruto's father, you really, truly owe me one. Jiraiya gazed at the ceiling, drooling from the corner of his mouth. I'm talking about somewhere tropical, with bikini-clad women and mixed bathing rooms, he said. With a frown and Naruto out of sight, Naruto's father remarked, Don't infect my child with your lecherous ways. Naruto, you mustn't get involved with perverts like him. Naruto gave a wise nod. Perverts! Jiraiya, Naruto's father, and the ninja agent outside the doorway all gazed for a while. Jiraiya, damn you! Look at what you've done now! Exclaimed Naruto's father, slapping the man on the back of his head. His first word was, perverts, which I will have to note in my baby book. My mother is going to kill me. I'm not to blame. 3-month-olds typically just spout gibberish. Furthermore, it was you, not me, who used the word perverts. It was unusual to have a family, and even the noisy portions were enjoyable, Naruto said, clapping as he watched the Sannin member and his father argue. Stop talking! We're about to visit Naruto's mother. I'm going to let my child kill you if she uses that word once more when she wakes up. Do you understand? Jiraiya. No one had ever survived tailed beast extraction in shinobi history, so the fact that her body was still functioning was an unexplained miracle. Jiraiya shivered. Nuru's mom was scary when she was angry. They didn't call her the bloody habanero for nothing. He thought about the man's words. When she woke up, not if. He grinned sadly, looking down at the child while Naruto's father fussed with the child carrier. Your kid needs you here, and your Naruto father needs you here. If you didn't wake up, he would break like glass. With the IWA war still continuing on, Hyde Ninja Village couldn't afford to have a broken headmaster. I hope Tsunade can heal you. The hospital room of Naruto's mom. It was tragic to see his mother in this state. It was even worse because he had seen her before, both when he was taming 9 beasts and when they had returned, and she was so full of life. Now she just lay there. She wasn't as wasted as he had anticipated, most likely because she was descended from Uzumaki, but the emotions in his chest still caused 9 beasts to stir deep inside. Do you really want your son to be here? When Naruto's father came in, Tsunade asked without glancing at him. Sternly, the child has a right to see his mother, remarked Naruto's father. The choice is yours. She shrugged. Jiraiya's statement that Naruto's mom was near death is the sole reason I'm here. For the past 3 months, she has been unconscious. What's wrong with her is still unknown to us. Naruto looked, taking notes in his mind. His father was a skilled wheedler. We desperately need your expertise. His eyes were big and innocent, and his tone was begging. With a sigh, she put on some gloves and said, Let me see what I can do. It was tiring to train his eyes on his mother, and Naruto struggled to keep his childish mind focused. He kept trying to glance at the ceiling, or the lovely lights, or the birds outside the window. Tsunade raised Naruto's mom's left eyelid and remarked, That's strange. The sclera has black dots on it. A parasite of some kind? Somehow, Advocate coughed. With a deadly serious tone, Naruto questioned, What did you do? She/it stated sadly that she was dying and that drastic measures were necessary. Naruto repeated, What did you do? 9 beasts awoke, one eye opening. Like you do with an opium addict, who you placed in a cell within 4 he couldn't reach, I injected many cells to restore her core energy, and gradually wean her off Yuki. Advocate thought. There's a better metaphor for that, I'm sure of it. People called Naruto a huge kid at heart, but Advocate was a toddler in comparison. What's wrong with her now? Naruto inquired, less irate this time, since it was hard to remain upset with the Advocate. She's unintentionally keeping my cells from leaving her body, if I had to guess. Advocate wheedled. If you could just get a little closer. Mama, Naruto begged, reaching out as far as he could, while his father gazed at him. Mama, did he just say that? Numbly, the 4th headmaster inquired. Amused, Tsunade shook her head and said, I take it he's around 3 months old? Baby talk, that's all. Youngsters enjoy making up stories to test their speech skills. But it's encouraging. Indicates that he is growing at the proper rate. According to Naruto's father, he said his first word today, and it was full as well. Nearly right. Really? That's unusual, Tsunade said, raising her eyebrows. What word? It doesn't matter. He stated it, and that's what matters. Have you been swearing close to the infant? It was actually Jiraiya's fault, darn it. You allowed Jiraiya to go close to a baby? Tsunade questioned with horror. Are you insane? He must have had some life talent from the other timeline because Naruto had been placed down when Tsunade and Naruto's father were fighting. It was comical, really, how excellent he was at making people fight. There was no time to second-guess himself. Naruto reached for his child seat's release, using all of his strength to press the latch, and it opened with a soft click. He shrugged his way out and slipped across the table on feeble baby arms and legs, behind a row of beakers, onto a smaller desk, and then gently fell onto the bed beside his mother. Well done. Excellent improvisation. Touch her neck on both sides now, Advocate suggested. When Nerda did so, he was surprised to feel the woman's pulse. It seemed that baby hands had very sensitive nerves. He thought about this for a moment before he struck. A pulse of energy ran down his arms, and if anyone had been looking, his seal would have lit up in glorious purple. His chubby palms suddenly blossomed in heat, and he fell backwards onto the covers with a strangled yelp, his hands red as if they had been stung. The pain soon subsided. When Nerda's father heard the commotion, he was startled to see that his youngster had not only vanished from his child carrier but had also somehow scuffled across 2 tables of sharp objects to get to his unconscious wife's side. Ah! Nerda! What are you doing? To his dismay, the child appeared to have burned his hands on something. He sobbed as he reached out and picked him up. To his dismay, the tears seemed to shatter what little control Nerda had over his body, and he found himself sobbing on his father's shoulder. He couldn't help but cry. This body simply wanted to cry, cry, cry. He would never be able to look Inari in the face again. Tsunade. Let me see him, Tsunade said, carefully removing the child from his confused father's grasp. She lifted him into the air and examined him. There were no dangerous chemical spills, no bleeding wounds, just 2 very red hands. She sighed. Like mother, like son, both troublemakers. She placed him on the table and held one of his hands tenderly, a green light emanating from her palm. Is he okay? Even though he knew it was bothersome, Nerda's father had to ask. Fortunately, Tsunade had dealt with a lot of worried parents during her time as a medic nin. They're only minor burns, Tsunade reassured him. Similar to a sunburn. Nerda's father frantically raked his hands through his hair, saying, Geez, I let him out of my sight for one moment, and this happens. There was something strange about the setting, and Tsunade ignored him as he started babbling about the problems of fatherhood. Tsunade narrowed her eyes as the burns gradually disappeared. The child was only out of sight for a few seconds. The burners are all under the cabinet, and none of them are on. Furthermore, none of the chemical bottles have spilled, so it's not a liquid-soluble irritant or any gaseous irritants that have been left lying around. There, everything is better, she exclaimed cheerfully as she fixed her gaze on the tearful youngster in front of her. For a brief time, she believed she saw both remarkable intelligence and thankfulness. Maybe you have some of your father in you too, huh? He does have the eyes for it, said Nerda's mother out of bed. There was stunned quiet. Nerda mother? Nerda father gasped, rushing to her side and flinging his arms around her. You're awake! Don't talk so loud, she whispered. I have the worst headache ever. Last night, were we in a pub or something? What has brought me to the hospital? The father of Nerda replied. Well, you sorta collapsed, with a tone of relief in his voice. We weren't sure if you'd wake up. You could almost see her brain restarting as the memories came flooding back in as her eyes widened. The 9 Fox! Nerda! The village! That man in the mask! What took place? Easy there, easy, we can talk all you want, I'm not going anywhere, the Nerda dad said. We have all the time in the world. Nerda was wailing again, just his 2 snickering occupants noticing. Father Nerda. So we're not entirely sure yet, the father of Nerda requested Tsunade in a low voice so as not to wake his wife or Nerdu, who was holding Nerda to her bosom. No. Her eyes no longer have the black spots. It has to be some sort of technique. Usually, poisons don't function that way. We ought to keep an eye on her for a few days after that. I'll send a genin team to bring her some ramen every day for the next week, just to make sure she's okay. Naruto's father said, nodding to himself. She enjoys bossing Genin around, so that will lift her spirits. That's definitely abuse of power, Tsunade said with a laugh. I'm positive of it. Furthermore, none of my patients are receiving ramen from you. It contains far too much salt to be considered healthful. Naruto shares his mother's enthusiasm for it. Keeping it from him would be cruel, the Naruto parent said. You're giving him solid food already? Tsunade asked, gaping. Rubbing the back of his head, Naruto's father said. No, well, not really. One day, when we were eating, I had to speak with a ninja for a security evaluation. The tiny jerk was sipping from my dish when I turned around again. How he got out of his high chair so quickly is beyond me. He's going to be a troublesome toddler, admitted Tsunade. For a little period, they watched the mother and infant sleep peacefully in silence. Thank you for coming back, Naruto's father uttered in a low voice. With the amusement acting as a thin veil over genuine grief and anger, Tsunade remarked. Jiraiya said that you were going to drag me back yourself if I didn't. And in the end you didn't really need me. That is untrue, Naruto's father objected, saying, She woke up as soon as you returned. It has nothing to do with me, Tsunade countered. It was just a coincidence. I hadn't even started to restore her core energy after the tests. Who did it if you didn't? Tsunade, in the shinobi world, nothing happens by accident. Her eyes returned to the mother and child. Start talking like that and you'll turn into Sarutobi, she mumbled. The mother passed out the night of his birth and woke up when he touched her, shaking her head. Coincidence. Kids don't understand medical spirit art. Core energy burns, she remarked. It has to be a coincidence, in a voice that was too quiet for Naruto's father to hear. After a month, Namake's residence pathway, Naruto mom. I'm annoyed about that hospital food. Tsunade and her fucking vitamin-rich meals to Bayo, muttered Naruto mom angrily as she strode up the smooth, hard path. If it helps, I did try to sneak you some ramen, Naruto's father remarked, his face still covered in bruises from Tsunade's blow. Yeah, well, I knew there was a reason I married you, she murmured, pacifying herself. Where is Naruto? He's up at the house, playing with his toys, Naruto's father remarked with a smile. I wanted you to surprise him. Astound him? You behave as though he's an adult. Does he only have 3 or 4 months to go? Her voice wavered a little on the numbers, and she asked more questions than she wanted to. Upon witnessing his wife's anguish, Naruto's father grinned and swiftly wrapped his arms around her, causing her to briefly fight before succumbing to his hug. What happens if he doesn't recognize me? Miserably, Naruto's mother questioned. What if I've missed that aspect of his life? It's okay, Naruto's father whispered into her hair. Recall that I frequently brought him to see you. Additionally, he is just 4 months old, so you two have lots of time to get to know one another. What if I hadn't heard his first word? His initial action? I was on the verge of abandoning him. At the conclusion, her voice broke down. She was fortunate to have pressed her face against his chest to cry at that precise moment, or else she would have noticed the somewhat guilty expression on Naruto's father's face. He ran his hands over her hair and murmured, It's okay, Naruto mom. You can handle this. Come on. He led her slowly up to the doorway, stopping to turn off the space-time wards. She would have slapped him for transforming their home into a military stronghold if she had been in a normal state of mind, but instead she resorted to stepping away from him and straightening her hair with a hand. She said plainly, I'm ready, and Naruto's father nodded before opening the door. Naruto frowned into the strong morning light, turning away from the stuffed animal he had been sitting by the door. She took a step forward and stopped, her arms outstretched, but Nerdamom's eyes betrayed her and began to well up with tears once more. And Nerda. Nerda's eyes brightened as well. Mama. Nerda, perhaps she wasn't as unknown as she believed, she shouted, throwing her arms around the boy and spinning him around in a circle of laughter. Father Nerda. The child was crying into Nerdamom's shoulder as if he were a tiny faucet, and she missed her husband's shocked look, knowing this time for sure that it wasn't a pair of random syllables. She wasn't much better, though her nose was probably running less, and he would have to wash that dress later. Mentally frowning, Nerda's father was becoming a domestic housewife of sorts. You see? Jiraiya, who had intended to be present when Nerdamom returned from the hospital, lifted a hand as if to say something, but Nerda's father elbowed him, taking the breath out of his lungs. You got to hear his first word after all, he remarked with a smile. Jiraiya wheezed, got it, and sat down heavily on the couch. Had it not been for their wonderful reunion, the Nerda father most likely would have killed him. For now, this is sufficient, Nerda father determined, and I can ask questions later. Nerda was a formidable ninja. The most powerful. The strongest living, that is, except Obito, who didn't really count because he was strange and eerie. It was a sobering thought as he sat there in his mental landscape that for the next couple of months he'd be an immature brat incapable of crawling to the bathroom. The point was that, despite having seen his fair share of terrible things as a ninja, including tears, camaraderie, and mud, none of that was quite as horrible as not being able to take care of oneself. Nine Beast remarked. Weren't you always an immature brat? Advocate had learned to mimic Nine Beast's voice, which provided him with limitless amusement. At least he assumed it was Nine Beast. You damn fox, stop talking! Nerda screamed. Hey! Nine Beast objected. That wasn't me. Nine Beast angrily exclaimed. It was me! That was the Advocate! Or perhaps they were all the Advocate, and Nine Beast had been silent the entire time. It was enough to blow one's head off. Nerda frowned. He would not meditate, he would not attempt to kill the voices in his head, and he would most definitely not consider how much time he would have to spend with an immature jackass and Nine Beast was just a jerk, really, and irritated at having to put up with a second jailer in the seal. He grabbed the bars of his cage and dragged himself up, forcing his will back into his body. He was in a difficult situation because it had been almost an hour since he had eaten, and he could already feel the pressure building. His room was right across from the restroom, so if he could just get out. It wasn't working. Ninja craftsmen weren't like other craftsmen, after all, so Nerda worked at the bars with as much rage as an 8-month-old infant could. Frustrated, he sat back down. There had to be a solution. He wouldn't give up. Nine Beast smiled and remarked, If Hinata could see you now. Nine Beasts don't know about Hinata. Damn it, Advocate, I know that was you. Nerda halted, his look becoming to one of arrest. Wait, how do you know about Hinata? You see, I was modifying your memories at the time. You spied on them? That is just incorrect. Advocate replied softly. Don't get your diaper in a twist. You weren't waking up, and it wasn't like I could just pick out what was hurting you right away. I had to scan a bit. How much is a bit? It's only a little. You're worse than the headmaster of the 6th. Yes, I do recall that. Introducing the Team 7. That's more than a bit. In an indication of his agitated mental state, Nerda jerked a little. Is it really necessary for you to be concerned about me at this moment? Didn't you have some urgent business to attend to? Even though he was sure that his small frame could take a punch without breaking anything, he didn't have enough core energy to break the bars, and the distance to the floor was another factor. He couldn't just jump over it. Nerdu was startled to see that it had been 30 minutes from the wall clock. One choice remained. He concentrated, working through it, and slowly, reluctantly, the core energy seeped out. He reached out and stuck his foot to the bar. The effort left him oddly weak, like if he hadn't eaten in days. His foot was repulsed with a loud snap, and he tumbled shamefully, and he would have died of embarrassment if anyone had seen him. There were chuckles. Strange, he thought, focusing all of his attention on the bars. Water walking and wall walking were among the first skills he had acquired. He had performed them precisely as he had the last time, but it seemed that he had invested too much core energy in them. Advocate told him, "You are a baby now, Nerdu. You have to consider your size. Half that would probably be enough. No, better go a quarter and go up because you won't waste what little life energy you have left." That made sense, so he dug up a small amount of core energy, and his foot barely stuck. Nerdu said, "I did it!" and then took a step, but he struggled to keep his body upright and eventually fell. No one paid attention to the old, cracked wood of one of the bars, which appeared to have aged 100 years in a single instant, and Nerdu heated in his mind that day while his mother, who was on diaper duty, changed his soiled clothes and replaced them. Nerdu father, headmaster's office, 1 year, 4 months later. Tsunade stated, "I think it's about time I left, Headmaster Sama," with a strong alcohol odor coming from her breath. "This is the 3rd time this week, Tsunade," Nerdu's father said, massaging his brow with one hand. "You know you shouldn't make decisions when you're intoxicated," he said. "Spend the night. Get some rest after drinking. We'll speak once more in the morning." "But Dash," she slurred, eager to dispute. Nerdu's father, on the other hand, was sick of arguing with the renowned Slug Princess, and especially sick of the way she filled the compartment with the stench of cheap sake. With a strong "no buts," Nerdu's father closed his ledger and declared that a ninja could not leave the village intoxicated. "I have things to accomplish tonight, so go home or back to your hotel room. For starters, I don't have time to quarrel with you because there is a council meeting." Alcohol inhibited a shinobi's ability to control core energy and, more importantly, control themselves. There was a reason why it was forbidden for ninjas to get themselves blindingly drunk. For Tsunade, a medic nin, it was an insane risk. Something had to be done, but he couldn't see what. Nerdu's father ushered her out the door, crediting the alcohol for his ability to do so without getting a fist in the teeth. With a sigh, Nerdu's father leaned against the door, hoping that this time she would return home rather than banging on it for an hour, not that he would be here. He quickly sealed his attention on a specific weapon in the council room, and the area around him bent with a blast of core energy. He was also somewhere else. No one would dare be less than fully supportive of the headmaster, especially at a time of war when adversaries were everywhere, and even Danzo was being cautious in his critiques, because the council was already fully formed and he had been barely on time. During the meeting, as was customary, the council tried to meddle in the war, the academy, and the advancement of promising ninja prodigies. While Nerdu's father disagreed with most of their recommendations, outright opposition was usually the most stupid course of action. In those cases, he would simply say, "I'll keep it under advisement," and the council would continue. Occasionally, someone would actually come up with an interesting fact or make a really good improvement. Not like what followed. In contrast to his eyes, which were a pit of darkness, Danzo remarked, "Yandame-sama," in a voice that was completely respectful. "I must once again register my complaint against the disposition of our village's Jinchuriki. I would like to mention," remarked Nerdu's father in a detached and icy tone, "that this is the 3rd time that a complaint of this kind has been filed, and that the first 2 have been addressed. Are you wasting our time, Danzo, or does the council have fresh evidence to support its position?" IWA has long demonstrated that it is capable of underhanded and bloody tactics, Danzo said, causing some council members to flinch at the frost in his tone. You have destroyed the enemy on multiple occasions by yourself. They are afraid of you and your strength. You will not be attacked from the front by them. Currently, it can be claimed that IWA has acknowledged your wife and son as legitimate targets. We therefore aim to relocate the Jinchuriki and his mother to a more secure area where they can be better protected. Despite his strict control, Naruto's father gasped at him and said, Are you implying that I am incapable of defending my family? Danzo started to say something, but he interrupted. Are you suggesting that Hyde Ninja Village is unable to defend its own boundaries? I always have a 3-person ninja squad to protect my son. Horatian seals, which do nameless things to invaders, are planted throughout my home. And before you protest about the waste of village resources, as I see you were about to do, may I remind you that your point is to protect them more thoroughly? I beg the headmaster only to consider my words, that he may act with wisdom greater than the impetuousness of his youth. Danzo, the epitome of modest acceptance, closed his eyes. A menacing smile twisted Naruto's father's lips. Impetuousness. I'm curious how you encourage me to take more action before criticizing the outcome. We are producing new ninja at record speed since I have shortened our training regimens to a third of their typical length. For the benefit of the village, my instructors tell me, they are actually falling into bed because they are too tired to protest. I promise you that we would all be dead or crushed under Iwa's heel if I allowed my impetuousness of youth to dictate my choices. Danzo just nodded. Sarutobi frequently argued for him, but he was far too trusting. Danzo had his place and time, and this was not it. As he watched the man think quietly with his eyes closed, Naruto's father questioned whether that moment would ever arrive. And Danzo the Jinchuriki has a name. Naruto's father up and walked toward the door, saying, If that's all for today, gentlemen, I have a birthday party to prepare for. It's Namike's, Naruto. You're going to call him that. His eyes were as unfathomable as ever as Danzo watched him go. Uchiha Compound, Naruto. He had never really had a birthday party before, at least not one with people, and by the time he'd reached Team 7, he'd sort of grown out of birthday parties. The third headmaster was the last to really celebrate with him, and even he sent presents without spending too much time with the child. Naruto sighed. Crayons had lost their appeal. All the kids around him were drawing, throwing a ball, or something. His first birthday celebration had been a huge surprise, and although Naruto was embarrassed to admit it, he had spent a lot of time crying for no apparent reason. Fortunately, that was normal for someone his age. In fact, he had completely forgotten the date. He was virtually grown up by the time he was 2, though, and he had much better control. He hadn't shed a tear since, well, yesterday, when he'd hit his head on a low table, and even then, it was more of an eye-watering thing than full-blown tears. Advocate enthusiastically remarked, Well, I guess we're ready to take on the Chunin exams. Not crying every day. Oh, shut up, Naruto replied sourly. He was thrilled to be able to speak again. It was wonderful that he could now move his fingers and toes without having to focus for hours on end. Better yet, he was finally toilet certified and no longer needed diapers. Naruto noticed a movement and turned to see as a ball bounced off his nose. He frowned at the recognizable hairstyle and resisted the impulse to say a few offensive words that would likely land him in the naughty corner again. Pay attention to where you're kicking that databao. He rubbed his nose and spoke angrily. With a frown, Naruto's companion retracted his apology, saying, I'll kick it where I want to, idiot. Itachi, who was 5 years older than Naruto, reached down and picked up his brother by the back of his shirt, much like a dog would do to a boisterous puppy. The two scowled at each other, but Naruto couldn't help but feel a little happy. If another very familiar face hadn't intervened, it might have resulted in blows, friendly blows. Buddy, what are you doing to the birthday boy? Itachi asked, frowning. Well, that could have simply been his expression. A notion occurred to him as Nuda's friend scowled at the ground. Perhaps all Uchihas had a constant frown. Perhaps Nuda had simply assumed that Nuda's friend was inherently unpleasant. Perhaps this was a family trait. It's not his fault, Nuda remarked, attempting to defuse the situation. I was just surprised. Yeah, we were just playing Tachi, said Nuda's friend, whose acting prowess fooled no one. Itachi made a foolish face and stuck his tongue out at Naruto as soon as he put him down, and Naruto, a little irritated that his offer had been turned down, returned the favor. Extreme face pulling and insults ensued. Yes, you are really mature. You must have some clever tactics since you defeated the 2-year-old at. Who can make the stupidest face? Stop talking, Naruto responded violently. No, stop talking, my friend Naruto shot back. Using his well-known shun move, Naruto declared, I'm way too old to be playing this stupid game anymore. I am older than you, an angry Naruto buddy remarked. My birthday was a long time ago. Maybe I've grown up since then, forgetting his shunning technique, Naruto remarked. I bet I can throw shuriken better. Are you able to toss shuriken? Mom became very upset when I touched her shuriken, stated my friend Naruto, forgetting her displeasure. For a week, I was not permitted to leave the compound. Maybe my parents are just better than yours, Naruto said cunningly. This was something he'd never been able to use as a child for two very good reasons. First, he hadn't had any, and second, by the time he met Naruto, neither had any friends. To be honest, he felt like a jerk the moment he said those words. My mother is the best. And my dad's Fugaku, the clan head, exclaimed Naruto's companion, furious once again. My mom is a shinobi from Yuzu, and my dad is the headmaster, Naruto countered. As a result, Naruto spent the first birthday celebration in which he was able to fully participate debating the merits of each parent with his enduring enemy, Father Naruto. He laughed, and Fugaku gave him a perplexed look before noticing the two kids. Oh, our children seem to have found one another. He typically gets along well with other kids, that Naruto pal. Naruto's father grinned and remarked, Naruto has a special talent he can get under anyone's skin for good or for ill. Your wife is very similar to you. Her absence is something I can't help but notice. The Naruto father said vaguely. Naruto mom had an appointment today that she had to keep. So, shall we go to business? With dubious eyes, Fugaku remarked, I thought there might have been a reason you asked me to host the party. And he was right. Quite erratic. In the upcoming years, I hope it will become more widespread. Where do you envision yourself in 10 years, Fugaku? I imagine in the same place we've always been, the Uchiha head stated quietly. Really? Naruto's father remarked dryly, causing Fugaku to wince a little. Reports. Headmaster Sama reports? Call me Father Naruto, please. Soon enough, I think we'll be seeing each other quite a bit. That. I'm sorry. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Kumogakure is considering peace. The words didn't register for a second until Fugaku virtually burst out of his chair. It's impossible. It must be some kind of deception. When his niece was slaughtered in the land of grass, the Reikage vowed to exact revenge on us. A few of the kids turned to watch, but they quickly returned to playing. Maybe this isn't the right setting, Naruto's father murmured, motioning for him to sit down. Calm down, Fugaku, he said. I just wanted to bring it up so you could think about it. The consequences. After all, the Uchiha are an essential component of the village's defense. We would be very grateful for your input. I've suggested to the council that you be permitted to speak as a guest. Fugaku found himself saying, I am honored, Lord Naruto Father-san. I'll start working on my speech right away. He had tried to quell the rumors that they were responsible for the attack, but he suspected that the Hyuga were intentionally fostering them. The Uchiha had stood, bowed, and left, and Naruto Father watched him go with a predatory gleam in his eye. That would have to do, a subtle tip of his hand, hinting without acknowledging the unrest his agents reported while also giving them a chance to regain lost influence. Speaking of the Hyuga, he grinned a little when a dark-haired girl about Naruto's age entered the compound and shyly held her father's hand. Hayashi, Naruto Father said, waving. The Hyuga waved back, walking over and taking up the seat Fugaku had vacated. He lifted his bangs. Oh, sorry, Hizashi. You two look a lot alike. Without the seal, we'd be identical, Hizashi remarked, grinning despite a flash of sadness and bitterness in his eyes. Naruto's father was reasonably positive that Hizashi cared more about his kid than himself, but he doubted that any branch family member was truly at peace with their lot. Well, it's still my bad, Naruto's father replied, reclining back. Still, the invitation was sent to Hayashi and his daughter, so you can't blame me for making the mistake. With Hinata trying to melt into the floor, Hizashi looked down at her and said, well, you see, Hayashi-sama was forced to take part in a clan meeting, but didn't want Hinata to miss out on the birthday party. Naruto's father's eyes narrowed shrewdly. I see. So maybe we should introduce them? When Hizashi nodded, the Hyuga heiress approached Naruto. To his father's amazement and laughter, Naruto put his arms around her neck right away. As a student of Sarutobi, he'd like to think he'd taken the best parts of the Third's reign and enforced a little more discipline. It was clear what Hayashi was planning, and if he thought Naruto's father, much less Naruto's mom, was going to arrange a marriage, a common practice between ninja families, between his barely out of infancy son and the Hyuga's equally young heiress, he was sorely mistaken. A friendship with the headmaster's son was normally a good thing for one's family, but perhaps he was getting ahead of himself. Naruto's father groaned, sipping the terribly non-alcoholic fruit drink. Hayashi might simply be putting out lines, hoping to land a large fish. Sometimes, Naruto's father sighed once more. I hate being headmaster. 13 months later, Naruto gathered core energy, then let it out. With a satisfying whoosh, the bluish, barely visible energy scattered into the air above his palm. It was getting less and less difficult to pull it out, but he still couldn't move a tenth of the core energy he could at his peak. The Rasengan was a far-off dream at this moment. What's causing this to fail? Frustrated, he asked. Advocate again. 9Bs didn't talk as much, but Advocate always had a sarcastic remark ready. You shouldn't talk to yourself. It creates a negative habit. If two people are listening, I'm not talking to myself, Naruto retorted. Yes, you were. If you want to know how core energy is created, keep in mind that there are two types of it: Shintai core energy, which is the power of the body, and Seishin core energy, which is the power of the soul. Your Shintai core energy is pitiful, but your Seishin core energy is amazing. The imbalance between the body and mind is showing up as core energy disturbances. In other words, until your body catches up with your mind, you won't have perfect control, or even adequate control. When I was in the academy, I thought lectures were awful, but when you think about it, it's far worse, Naruto pondered. What a brat! Advocate murmured in the back of his head, clearly backing off. Naruto frowned down at the sand, unable to utilize ninja methods since he was only 3 years old, and illusion techniques were also prohibited for the same reason as ninja techniques. This truly sucks, he murmured, frustrated. How am I meant to do anything without any techniques? Other than that, what is there? He smiled as an idea came to him. A month later, Naruto. Fortunately, Shadow clones required less control than most other techniques, so after much sweating, he managed to squeeze out enough core energy to create one, which he left sleeping in his bed. He was certain that the kidnapping had occurred shortly after the peace treaty, but surveying the Hyuga compound was more difficult than he had anticipated, with his ridiculously small bladder, Nerdu mom, and Nerdu father making it difficult to just sneak out of the house. Even the shadow clone, a technique that the older Nerdu found effortless, required 10 minutes to construct, and a 3-year-old would hardly be able to fight an experienced jounin, so there was little he could do to overcome the top ninja. He used his trump card in that situation. It would require some modification, but Nerdu sat quietly meditating, seeking the ebb and flow of nature he had learned on Mount Mayaboku. His core energy levels were high, in fact, they were near normal despite his low physical core energy. They were easily powerful enough, if he could move it through his tiny little conduits. He felt the advocate's presence, like a tiny hole in the world's natural order, devouring external core energy to feed its existence. He bent and formed it, slowly and surely, and it came to him. He matched it to his own levels, felt it rising like a tide, then stopped drawing it in. Life flowed through his every vein, and he felt good. The seal on his stomach writhed a little before becoming motionless. So it worked after all, Nerdu muttered, gazing at his hands. He felt mature. It was as if being a child on the outside made you one on the inside as well. Sage mode brought a peculiar calm to his mind, making it easier for his true self to come through. He made the proper gestures. Transform! He was mimicking someone he knew wouldn't be questioned for attacking a diplomat, someone who was definitely not a member of Hyde Ninja Village, someone who would be seen and easy to blame, and the technique went off without a hitch thanks to the natural core energy coursing through him. Therefore, anyone with a very, very good eye for hidden ninja who had been hanging around the Hyuga family between midnight and 1 would have spotted Hoshigaki Kisame hiding in a shadowy corner, debating whether it was safe to use the restroom or if he should wait. Nerdu. It took 2 days for the head ninja to fall for the trick. After the first night, Nerdu changed the plan to include his sudden core energy control. This time, he used Sage Mode as a kind of counterbalance and created 2 clones, one to sleep in his bed and another to pretend to be a young Hinata who was stumbling around the area around the Hyuga compound and appeared to be unable to find her way home. His clone had disguised herself twice to evade Hyde Ninja Village patrols or ninjas, but shortly after, Nerdu discovered a core energy source he hadn't before seeing the child wandering down the street. Nerdu paused. Was it a little too evident that the head ninja had to initiate contact? Evidently not. The man struck, bringing the seemingly unconscious child with him as he returned to the rooftops. Nerdu smiled. The clone partially avoided the already non-lethal blow, reducing it to a simple tap. After running out of core energy, the clone dispelled the following day. As Nerdu had instructed, the clone had remained completely silent, watching without doing anything, until it finally weakened to the point where the ninja's jumping motion beneath it had disrupted the delicate layer of core energy that made up its outer shell, causing it to explode, not fatally, of course, but the smoke and minor concussion confused the jounin and, most embarrassingly, caused him to miss his next jump. In the meantime, Nerdu was giggling. On the inside, he wondered idly if the head ninja would still be head ninja after he had failed so spectacularly. His father had taken him to a council meeting after catching him playing with shuriken, and no longer trusted him to go home alone. Father Nerdu. Although their departure didn't bode well for the alliance, it turned out that the delegation from the village hidden in the clouds had left that morning, and no one knew why. They were supposed to stay for the annual New Year's feast of Hyde Ninja Village, but their presence had required a ninja presence at all times, discreetly following each member as they moved around the village. Nevertheless, Nerdu's father was happy to see them go. Has word been sent by the Reikage? Pacing behind his chair, Nerdu's father inquired. The 6th headmaster answered, No, Lord Headmaster, with a neutral voice and a veiled face, but the father could still tell it was him because a teacher always knows his students. Danza mumbled, That could be either good or bad, adding, I personally don't like not knowing. Together with the 2 counselors and the 2 civilian advisors, Nur's father nodded. I've received another report from the sand, he said. There have been reports of rock ninjas traversing grass country. An 8-man team is estimated. 8? That's the general number for one of their infiltration missions, Danza stated, squinting his eyes. 4 usually attack directly, and 4 attack from behind. Hamura rubbed his chin thoughtfully and stated, In this case, we can't be sure, adding that technically we're still at war. They may attack the community directly. A method of summoning? Curious, Koharu remarked. It would have to be incredibly complicated. Perhaps, acknowledged Nur's father. But this is most likely a probing blow. Since the 9 Tails ripped a breach in our fortifications, they haven't tried to test them yet. They will probably infiltrate, scout, hit an opportunity target, and then flee. The father of Nur scowled at Danza and said, Maybe we should increase the security around the Gene Dash. Sorry, around Nur. It was unusual for Koharu to support Danzu in the council room. If the village hidden in the rock were to acquire him, it would be perilous on multiple levels, she added in a wary tone. I agree, Nur's father murmured softly. I'll assign Dog to be an extra guard. He ought to be in the outdoor waiting area. Nur's father winced. He hadn't intended for the 6th headmaster to depart at that precise moment. The man had been carrying crucial documents. The 6th headmaster bowed once before vanishing. But, Danza stated apologetically, it would be prudent to boost patrols generally, since the rakeage was not responding and it was unclear how the village hidden in the clouds felt about our relationship. Ninja pairs 23 and 28 might be sent on long patrols close to grass and… 6th headmaster, why did you go without handing me my notes? Nur's father let the words run past him while holding his head in his hands. It was already too late for Nur to notice them. He was strolling down the street when he was suddenly under someone's arm. Too stunned to defend himself, he was hit on the back of his neck, and he opened his eyes, barely managing to stay conscious. This man from Cloud, I remember him from the Shinobi Alliance, is impossible, Nur thought, looking up. Then they're trying this again? Speaking into his core energy radio, the man said, Target acquired, and Nur strained to hear the reply. A voice spoke, We've got the 3 Jounin. And Nur blinked. It was recognizable, but who dash? As they fled down the alley, a man in a dog mask and the usual ninja costume appeared in front of them. The 6th headmaster. Nur's joy at meeting his savior was short-lived, as 7 rock members, all sporting headbands, surrounded him with their weapons readied. How did each of you enter the village? Despite the overwhelming odds, the 6th headmaster asked calmly. We were tracking all 8 of you the whole way here. No, this isn't a rock ninja, 6th headmaster. The man holding Nur stated. We had a little help, moving his burden slightly, as if to alert the other 7 members to rush forward. 6th headmaster sprang straight up in the air and revealed his Sharingan with a single swift motion. The 8th and last member of the rock team appeared in a barrage of shuriken as soon as he had crossed the alley walls, striking 6th headmaster at the top of his leap, where there was nowhere to avoid. They must have poisoned him at some time since he was unable to think clearly. His eyes were closed, and he whispered, 6th headmaster, battling the stupor with fear. He suspected that he would be completely unconscious without the 9 tails. He was energized by the sound of wood hitting the floor. Substitution. The screams of the opposing ninja were hard for Nur to hear at this point, with a lot of swearing interspersed with the sound of blood splashing. Something exploded, causing Nerdo to strain with all of his body's core energy, and open his eyes to find the sixth head master standing right in front of him with a bloodied weapon in his hand, his garments ripped and torn, and a steady stream of blood dripping from his other arm into the ground. The sixth head master raised his weapon and said icily, "Put the child down, and I promise your death will be swift." The man whispered, "You leave shinobi are the worst at negotiating. You ought to have promised to let me go before killing me anyhow." "I meant I'd kill you before Ibiki started heating the irons." The man laughed impossibly. "Ha! I had hoped this final trump card wouldn't have to be used." He raised his hand and then made a fist. "I don't like being in debt to such a shady ally, but oh well." Nudo believed he was saved for a crazy moment as Five-Leaf Ninja zoomed in. The blood left his face when he noticed the "ne" symbol on their masks. Mirroring Nudo's views, the sixth headmaster remarked, "Danzo, you assisted foreign ninja in entering Hyde Ninja Village? The father of Nudo will." The shortest member remarked, "Never know," and Nudo recognized a remarkably familiar voice this time. "It is best for the town if Leaf and Cloud remain at peace. Cloud's Jinchuriki projects will benefit from the Uzumaki core energy." Could things get any stranger today than the fact that Kabuto was a member of Root? "It's too intricate, but from what I can tell, Danzo has always enjoyed plotting," Advocate mumbled. With his body on the verge of unconsciousness, it was simple for Nerdu to inquire, "What's he after?" "Consider. Cloud gets you. Rock has their revenge by assisting with your kidnapping, claiming all credit. Both villages have their bloodlusts momentarily slaked. My seal's next to invisible, and impossible to decipher. It doesn't even look like a seal, really. Cloud attempts to implant the 8 tails in you, disrupting my prison and freeing the 9 tails inside their village, along with the 8 tails. Even if the two battled each other into oblivion, they totally wreck everything. To Danzo, such a treacherous peace offering is to be expected." The way Advocate said it, Nuda could almost forget about the thousands of Cloud ninja that the two-tailed beasts would slaughter. Cloud is incredibly weakened, both politically for breaking their peace treaty and militarily for being utterly crushed. Rock, on the other hand, is no doubt being utterly crushed by your enraged father. In one stroke, Danzo virtually annihilates Cloud and forces a massive military strategy change that Nuda father would never agree to otherwise. For a little while, Nuda's words failed him. "It has his name all on it: insane, risky, bold, possibly overconfident, and hesitant." The sixth headmaster narrowed his eyes, thankful for the mask. The would-be 9th kidnapper was definitely no match for him, resembling another of the other side's inferior jounin, and even if he were hurt, 6th headmaster could easily destroy him. The 5 Root members, however. The Sharingan saw it all, slowing down the thrusts for him practically before they were executed, and the 3 swept in as one without a word or even hand communication. Their weapons glittered as they steadily inched towards him. The 6th headmaster knew that I couldn't win. The 5 of them operate well together, appear to be seasoned, and, in contrast to the rock ninjas, have current knowledge of my skills. He swore, mumbled, "Sorry, Nuda father," and threw the smoke bombs, which exploded beneath him, making the Root ninjas leap back in expectation of an unexpected counterattack. However, when the haze cleared, no one was there. Nerda. 9 Beast was sleeping, as usual, and Advocate was silent, perched in the corner on top of a wooden pillar that had never been there before. Nerdo paced in the CO room, wondering if he could safely use 9 Beast again, as he had done before. The village needed to be alerted. 6th headmaster had to get reinforcements. He definitely hadn't abandoned him. Nerda mumbled, "Damn it," and kicked at the water. He wished he could move, switch into Sage mode, or employ a technique, but his small body shut down with little poison. Advocate's voice was as reasonable as ever when he said, "We're just going to have to wait." Naruto didn't like to look at him. He felt sick from studying the flickering, black void that made up his figure. Naruto Dad is a real Papa Bear, and I don't doubt Naruto Mom is going to be ripping heads off before the days are over. It was foolish of them to even try, Naruto said, nodding. I mean, what do they think would happen if the son of the headmaster was abducted in the midst of the village? It does appear to have a very low probability of success, the advocate remarked, stroking his chin thoughtfully. Unless. Advocate had this habit of concluding thoughts while Naruto waited. Look, I told you that no other phrase had to end on a cliffhanger. Tell me what's on your mind already. Advocate exhaled. If they infiltrated the village, grabbed you, and Danzo's made a play, I can only surmise that they believe Naruto Father and Naruto Mom will be unable to follow. One sluggish eye opened to observe them as the 9 beasts stirred. Unable, horrified, Naruto said, You believe Danzo Dash? Perhaps. The 6th headmaster. Taken? With horror, Naruto's father inquired. His nearly indestructible mask had long since cracked and shattered, a testament to the strength of the root ninja who had pursued him. They had halted when he arrived at the tower. Yes, Lord Headmaster, 6th headmaster said, still gasping from the effort of the chase. There were representatives from Stone, Cloud, and Root present. His father yelled angrily. Danzo, he's gone crazy! 6th headmaster leaned against the wall and remarked. They were wearing Root Ninja masks, but I don't understand his motivations either. Damn it, said Naruto's father, making a hand sign and then looking down before doing it again. My Haration is not accessible. Somehow, they must have undermined the seal I applied to Naruto's clothing. We'll have to go the traditional route. The messenger, dressed in Hyuga clan colors, froze at the touch of a blade to his neck as the door slammed open, and Naruto's father, who had reacted promptly, stood behind him. Report, said the 4th rudely. Lord Headmaster, it's awful, the messenger spouted, recovering from his brush with near beheading. Lady Hinata has. The chiefs of the Yamanaka and Nara clans emerged as the door opened once more. Lord Headmaster! Hot water and grass are being traversed by foreign ninja. How many? The 6th headmaster rose up and inquired, squirming. Our border town on grass reports 50 stone, several of which are Jounin, Shikaku replied. I've taken the liberty of reporting it to Sand, Inoichi stated. My sources in hot water say 30 or 40 stone nin have been sighted moving west, adding that the border town isn't reacting to the swift movement of the group. They might arrive in a few days if nothing stops them. That's Dash. He didn't appear to understand what the 6th headmaster was saying. The continuation of the 3rd war and the beginning of the 4th, Naruto's father remarked somberly.